Yes, this is about effectively listening with something called tracking. And as the introduction mentioned, that word was used and there was some question about what that is. Now, maybe when you're speaking with someone, you may relate to this a little bit. In fact, I was introduced to this topic when my wife said I didn't listen to her. At least that's what I think she said. She said something like that. But today, I'm going to talk about times when listening can be difficult. And when listening is difficult, there are three things I want you to take away. The first is don't react, respond. Second, when you respond, come from your aware heart, not from your judgmental head. And finally, use tracking, which I will describe, to decode and validate the message the other person is saying. Now, oftentimes, communication is very easy. When we're having a conversation that's very light and everything is fine, there's really no need for particular special communication skills. However, and your mileage may vary on this, there may be some other times when the things that you hear from the other person may seem like they're shouting at you from a bullhorn. And all you think you can do is just kind of try to tune it all out or shut it off. Or maybe it kind of comes through and you just kind of zone out and you just go, oh, make it go away. Or, and this is very popular with young people these days, is just kind of check out your Instagram or whatever and just kind of talk to the hand type of thing. Or you may choose to try to face it head on, and it may look like this. It may feel like you're just being blasted. Now, none of this is particularly effective when it comes to responding. But you say, well, what else? What else can you do? Well, you might fight back. If you fight back, then chances are that you may relate to this scene where you're now sort of yelling at each other. Nobody's listening. Nobody's hearing the message. And what does that often lead to? I don't know if you can relate to this couple, but this is the result of any one of those, whether you react, and that's all a function of reacting instead of responding. And so now you're probably wondering, well, what can I do instead of that? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Since you asked, here is what you can do. You can track. And now you're probably wondering, well, Arnie, what is tracking? And I'm glad that you asked that too. Tracking is a listening skill that keeps you in your aware heart. It keeps you from those scenarios that I was describing. The purpose of tracking is to validate the speaker. Now, let me explain what validate means. Well, first of all, what it doesn't mean. Validating does not mean agreeing. Validating means that you are hearing and understanding the speaker's message, and that the speaker knows that they have been seen, that they've been heard and understood. Now, one thing you should not say is, oh, I understand. I understand just what you mean. Or somebody's expressing a feeling. Oh, I know just how you feel. You have no idea how they feel. So this diagram may help explain what is going on with the aware heart and how that works with tracking. So here we have a person who, and as you can see, they're not terribly happy. They're sending a message which can seem uncomfortable. But this is the person who is tracking. And here's what happens is that they hear that message and they decode what the hidden message is. They understand what is going on with that person. And then they, from their aware heart, they reflect that message back to that person. And that helps connect the other person, the first person, the speaker, to their aware heart so that they can help move to a resolution. And so now you're probably wondering, okay, that all sounds great in theory, but Arnie, how do I track? Well, since you asked, here's what basic tracking is about. First, respond, don't react. One rule of thumb is you can start each response with the word "so you," and only use the pronoun you. Focus on the message, not just the words. And if you hear criticism, don't take it personally. Instead, validate the pain or angst of the speaker. At first, it's going to seem unnatural and maybe some uncomfortable. And you sometimes may get feedback that says, well, boy, you're talking so weird. But it will require some practice to become natural. All right, you may be thinking, so this sounds okay, but what does this really look like? Well, since you asked that again, I'm going to give a short demonstration. Now, this is a little scenario that could be made up. So let's say I come in and I hear from my significant other, I thought you were going to take the garbage out. What's wrong with you? Now, I can decode the message. What is it? So instead of reacting and say, well, you're always yelling at me, you say, well, so you were expecting it to be taken out now. Well, yeah, isn't that what I said? So you'd like to have it taken out right now. Well, yeah. And you'd like to have it be taken out without having to nag or respond. Yeah, that's it. Now, in that little demonstration, did you notice that I only used you in the responses? That they were not accusatory you. I wasn't saying, well, you're always yelling at me or you're always criticizing me. I never made the other person wrong. I never made myself wrong. And that a resolution actually organically presented itself. So oftentimes the presenting problem is not the real problem here, and that tracking helps lead to that resolution. So in conclusion, don't react, respond. Come from your aware heart and use tracking to decode and validate the message. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you.